was our boy Noah Bedham. So we have talked about Noah before. He's been rocking Green Tide for a hot minute. He took him to LVO. So shout out to him for keep holding strong. He came out on top as he should. So he was at Heroes of the Mid-Table Winter 2025. And I think I have this. Yeah, it's a 44 player event. Noah did get first with 5-0. And let's take a look at his list. And as well, we do have some notes. I actually have a document we'll talk about in a second. So a lot of information here from Noah. Thank you very much for being generous with your time. So for characters, we have 2 war bosses, 2 pain boys, and then a weird boy. The weird boy is the warlord. Light on characters. That is fully intentional by Noah. He says that he doesn't really want to give up Fix necessarily too easily. People can still pick it, but it just gets a little bit too easy and too dense when you have too many characters, and he kind of wants more stuff as well. I love to see it. Now, if people do pick Fix, he says for himself, hey, I'll literally take characters, put them in the truck, put the truck in reserve, and not let people interact with those characters if they did, but no one did. So if you're wondering if they took Fix, they didn't. Then we have his battle line. So he has 4 units of 20 boys. He did bring the rocket launchers. He does appreciate the rocket launcher. And then we'll talk about how he deployed them and how he utilized them when we look at his notes real quick. So he also has a 10-man unit of boys, and then 2 trucks, followed by 2 5-man units of flash kits, 1 minimum size unit of Gretchens, a commando brick with the Rama, the burner, the rocket, and the power claw. I like bringing all that too. To each their own. He had 1 unit of Luas, which he said this was really just for scoring. We'll talk about that as we go on. 2 minimum size unit of Storm Boys, and then 2 units of Tank Busters. As you can see, they do not have the shock attack gun. I think I'm more in favor of Tank Busters without a leader than I am Breaker Boys without a leader. So if you disagree, let's talk about it in the comments. I'd love to hear your opinion, but that's just me, and I appreciate it the more I talk to Noah about it. Hey, and we'll talk about that now. As for how Noah would like to deploy these units, and I will show you a document he shared with our Discord, and I'll talk about the notes he showed. But how he likes to deploy is he puts a Pain Boy and a War Boss unit on each of the flanks. Of course, he keeps the Pain Boys and the War Bosses near the center and behind walls, hidden from Alpha Strike. These are very, very valuable units. You could not let people get Alpha Strikes. If you play a Green Tide, never let this Pain Boy unit get Alpha Strike. A 20-man unit of just straight up boys without leaders is he likes to stick in the center of the deployment zone, and then a 10-man unit he likes to stick somewhere where he can activate for early skirmishes and such. And then he keeps the jump unit with the War Boss quite safe, as he does use that unit somewhat aggressively sometimes as well. Now I'll show you a little document here to give some point of view. You might want to screenshot it or whatever it is, try to give some context to it. It is a lot of drawing, but you can actually find this in the Discord, so check it out. So Noah actually wanted to give a little picture of how he would really draw it out. So for the blue circles is where he would stick his 20-man unit of boys and his Gretchen behind somewhere safe, roughly staged up for farming CP. His green circles are where he would consider putting the commando unit. The red lines are where he would consider pointing the Storm Boy unit, so he can run out and do and all sorts of different type of secondaries that he wanted to do. And then for the flash kits and the tank buster units, he liked to put them in the reserves and the flanks as well. So you can look at this, and of course, if you actually want to see that document in full, he put it in our Discord and it's pinned in it, so you can check it out and read thoroughly exactly how he liked to play the list. But his other notes on this is that he doesn't generally like to play early pressure. That's because you're not playing fully crazy mob the boys. He's down at least 30 boys from what people sometimes would generally bring, or they bring the whole full 120. He cut back on the boys, and if you're going to cut that on the boys, that means you have to cut back on the acceptable losses to a certain degree. I'm totally fine with that, but he also says that's not his player. He's confident in his ability to create places for himself to score naturally as the game progresses, and not allow the enemy to really take the initiative from him and do heavy damage to him. The jump combined with the tank busters usually keep the enemy at bay to a certain degree and respect his threat range. And it's a real toolbox he kind of lists. As you can see, if he doesn't feel like he needs to put his bricks out early, then he'll activate with all his MSU units. He has trucks, he has flash kits, he has commando unit, he has some Storm Boy lists, and then he has some tank busters. Like I said before, if we're talking about tank busters as a whole on one of these lists, you can actually pop a Rhino, which changes the game dramatically when you're going into Green Tide normally, where these guys are like untouched. In this case, you're like, dude, I can actually pop that and interact with that, and I can go out and deal with these units if I have to. His stratagems were highly important. As for blood surging, like people say, where if you shoot at the orc unit, they move towards you. It's now a d6. You get to roll it if you're still below 20. That's important. Stratagem, heck, very, very important. Another thing Noah likes to say a lot is that he doesn't have to stand on objectives if he knows that units, especially taking some casualties, as he'll naturally grow onto the objective in the command phase with either pain boys or a stratagem. So if he does place himself, the enemy has buffs to shooting at your unit when you're standing on an objective, but you want to hold primary, he would simply stand somewhere near a primary objective and then grow onto that objective if he took some casualties. So very, very cunning. I will say right now, he had a lot of reps. I'm not going to say 100, but he had dang near close to it. So Green Tide does matter for when it comes to repetitions, time management, and understanding your utility. There's so many more notes that I can go into, but we'll go through it as we go through his actual path to victory. Shout out to our sponsors, the Baron of Dice, as they helped us do our Waaaghtaktiks dice. So shout them out. Check them out in description, 5% off in the discount because nobody likes taxes. And shout out to Baron of Dice. They allow us to do our paint competition. So thank you very much to them. And hopefully some more of his notes and context comes up. Shout out to the chat. Yeah, I love this list too. It's a lot to play though, right? Because I'm more of a throw meat at you. If you haven't seen our other boy on here, John Holbrook, who runs Green Tide, he took him to Worlds. He likes to do all the meats, more bodies, all the body. One, it does matter on time clock, and then two, it does play different as to how aggressive like your options are. Noah doesn't have to go full YOLO as the meta is evolved, so his Tide approach, and I really appreciate that. So let's look at how he did. Or sorry, actually the list that he went into, and then some of his notes for how that went. So for his first game, we have the Grey Knights Wartbane Test. So we have the Grandmaster and Nemesis Dread Knight, 3 of them, 1 strike squad, 2 units of Inceptor squad, and then 3 more Dread Knights, followed by 3 Purgation squads. So this is just Dread Knight spam. Typically, not necessarily all the volume to get through Green Tide. Purgation squad can kind of put a good little hit on there, but nothing Noah couldn't handle. So let's take a look at what he said a bit about this. Let me look at what the mission was. Round 1. But with this one, actually, he did have some good notes for this one that caught me off guard. So he said it was Scorched Earth, which I appreciate Scorched Earth, but that means good primary for both players. That's not favorable to you as the orc person necessarily, unless they're conceding for you to burn the middle objective. And even then, you kind of need points because they're scoring pretty good primary as well. It is Tipping Point and Swift Action. Okay, so as for his notes real quick, let's see what he said about this one. He actually said that this one was a bad matchup for round 1, but he made sure he played pretty cagey, keeping his screens up to not to present anything too early. That's just simply for the amount of damage that these guys can bring to the table. So they do have the mortal wound bombing that this can do, I believe, as well. What he was saying, on turn 2, he presented the 20-man unit of boys and jumped, nailed a jump onto his natural expansion while everybody else staged up on the other flank. He made a mistake and he exposed some of his boys, and he lost 39 boys before he even called the wall. So on turn 3, he declared the wall, got all his tank busters out, and hit as hard as he could. He picked up 2 Dread Knights and nailed charges that put him in the deployment zone. The enemy relocated to Noah's deployment zone and took his home objective with everything else that he had. Last turn, he pulled Engage and Bring It Down, finished off a Dread Knight with a grenade to win the game. So the amount of damage output did actually increase because this was Warbane Task Force. So they were actually able to actually put a good hitting on him and hurting on him. He was playing KG, but one mistake and he took 39 casualties, which in the end, he just bucked up to the table, started to do damage in response, and then drew enough cards to pull it off. Like I said, on Scorched Earth, a lot of primary being scored by both people. It's easy to just go, I'm going to just keep one and then go, and especially if they go second, then they're going to at the end try to burn or anything like that. So good by you as an orc player, maybe turn 3 through 2, turn 3 if you can, try to burn one. No, it didn't say he did, but all in all, if I can, I like to try to burn it sometimes on if I can, because I'm pretty sure that's the mission. Yeah, it was. Okay. Now we move on. 92.1 there. So the close game though, by what he was saying. Dread Knights are very punishing, especially if you're elite, but all the flamers and stuff kind of add up. Purgation squads can add up. So let's take a look at his second matchup, which was against the Crusher Stampede. We do have notes, of course, for this as well to give some context. Ooh, let me see what the mission was. It was Terraform, Stalwart, and Crucible of Battle. So he had Hive Tyrant, oh WAAAGH, and then a Swarm Lord, Barmgons, Biowar, 2 Exocrines, Lictor, 2 Norn Emissaries, two Raveners, a Tyrannofex with the Acid Spray, and then a Tyrant Guard. So Tyrant Guard are gonna go with the Swarm Lord or whoever the character was. I think was it Hive Lord? Was I being dumb? It was Swarm Lord. Give him the feel no pain. Big brick if I try to survive. Acid Spray is kind of killy, but when there's that many boys, it can kind of add up. You can see the Norn Emissaries. Typically, their thing is we have too much OC. They don't typically have the good volume to kill boys. But let's see what Noah actually had to say about this matchup. Let me put it on this list. Let's see what Noah had to say about what happened in this matchup. He says game 2 was pretty unremarkable. The guy pushed up with his monsters, but Noah responded by stopping 2 terraforms. Keep in mind on terraform, people are going to want to do that early, as it just adds up to the points progressively throughout the game. If you can deny his terraforms turn 1 and 2, you're denying him 8 points, maybe more. It's kind of crazy. So that's a huge factor. It sounds like it's not because he just throws it in there like I just denied it. It's a big deal that he ran up and denied it. That's what you have to do as an org player. Like I always stress in the channel, as an org player, you're looking to flip primary, not simply always kill everything. We're not, like necessarily the most killy army in all of 40k. You know this if you rolled your own dice. We play the game where we kill you just enough that we also flip primary along the way. And even if we're failing to kill you, we kind of fail forward by playing the mission and secondaries really well. So Noah took heavy advantage of this based off what the mission was with Terraform. He said he started on his own, and he ended up on turn 3, killed a bunch of his big guys, and just pushed them out of the game in the end. By turn 3, pretty much everything swung in the end. So he ended up getting a 100-point win there. Shout out to him for a 100 right there. Then we go on to, let me just erase some of this so I don't get overwhelmed by my own tabs. Then we go into his third game, which his third game was the Ritual. So I talk about the Ritual. The Ritual is one of those missions, boy, that can give you an extensive game. So we have the Ritual, swift action, and the Crucible. This was against Necrons Awakened Dynasty. So let's look over the list real quick. What's up? Whoa, the Wicked Joe. What's up? You get into the chat. I see you guys all up in here. You're quiet. What you guys got to say, huh? I know you guys don't want to play Green Tide. You're worried about clocking out? No, I'm just kidding. So we go into the Awakened Dynasty. We have the Nightbringer, Hexmark Destroyer, and then Luminor Cesaris. Luminor Cesaris, you always remind me of Mazrog losing his 4 of Feel No Pain and you still having it. Ooh. Okay, so we have Emotech the Stormlord and then a two Scorpec Lords, followed by Technomancer. So many characters. We have a Canoptic Reanimator, a Brick of Wraiths, followed by 2 Crypto Thralls, 2 Doomsday Arcs, a Flayed one unit of Phidian Destroyers, and then 2 3-man units of Scorpec Destroyers. Oops, guys, I didn't move back to the list. Here you go. You can see it now. I almost messed with you guys up. You guys see the list now. All right, let's take a look at what my Git had to say about his path to victories for this game. Because with Ritual, boy, I hate it because with some of these Necron armies, I know if you played them, they're going to just castle and try to shoot at you with the Doomsday Arcs and play that really slow passive game, throw some Katans at you, and then just hope you can't deal with it. It's a not too deep game for them. So game 3, he said it was wild. I made an early play to start parking models on the center objective just on the edge of it. His opponent ended up putting 7 OC on it to deny it, which means he put more than simply a Catan, like I just said, which is what you want as an org player. You want them to invest so you can start moving up the table and steal their objectives. So he said, which presented his anchor point mid-table. When he meant anchor point, it meant stuff can start charging it and then swinging his models more up the table. So he declared a wall and then charged the entire army, where once he was stuck in, he ended up doing the jump so that he can reposition on the field and move around and try to deny more primary. Now, that's important. That's very important. One is that this Necron list doesn't necessarily hit super hard if you avoid getting one shot by maybe like a combined assault by Wraiths and Scorpec Destroyers, right? Maybe on your 20-man unit. But all in all, between your invuln and if you're just kind of stacking and manipulating the combat phase, but they can't really get off on you, that means once you've tagged them to hold them in place and you did jump away from them to reattempt to charge, they're still stuck where they are fighting other units, but now you've tagged them up and allowed them to not use their full offensive capability, like if you touch Doomsday Arcs, for example. So the other thing about that is people don't understand that the jump is not a fallback. You did not make the fallback move. You just jumped out of combat, which means yes, if you had to jump out of combat, you can re-engage with another re-engage with another charge, which is what Noah was ended up doing, which is very smart because whenever you're dealing with Necrons, touching them is a big deal. Stopping them from playing the game when they want and how they want. He said he did end up whiffing charges the entire game, but he ended up winning it on the back of the regen strat, the blood surge strat, and manipulating movement in combat. Like I said, with the weird boy by being smart. So great job by Noah there. Love to see when someone outplays the Necrons, especially on Rich. Then we move on to his game 4. Whoa, what's up? Whoa, what's up, the clip? I see you, boy. Hey, what's up, Arkin? You playing against Dids just like that one on Saturday. Oh, well, now you got some tips. You get OC matters and tank buzzers definitely make a big difference in that Nid matchup, huh? So in his 4th game, let's take a look at his 4th game where he went into the Thousand Sun. This had actually been notoriously kind of hard for Orc Tide players because they actually do bring the volume to pick up your Tide. So we have Armon on Discus each, Magnus to red, 2 Infernal Masters, and then 1000 Suns Demon Print. We have 3 minimum size units of Rubric Marines, 1 unit of Tenzangors, 2 units of Cultists, followed by 2 minimum size unit of 3 Zangors and Lightens, and 2 Munolith Vortex. Pretty much what we're seeing all the time from these Thousand Suns list. I'd say the biggest new piece is the Demon Prints. Other than that, this is what you kind of expect from the Thousand Suns. So let's see what Noah had to say about this game. He said it was a hard fought matchup and it was really rough as he fell for an early WAAAGH bait and failed some charges. He whiffed on all his bomb squigs but he ended up coming on top for a couple good blood surges. He said Ludas ended up coming on top by scoring him 20 points over 3 turns. This mission was taken hold on Hammer and Anvil. So love to see that. He didn't give too many notes on that one, so he really just said that was a rough game. And when it comes to taking hold, it's like for each one you have, you just get 5. A lot of people just hold one their own, play the long game. And so you really have to kind of be the aggressor. So you have to be like a cautious, which is why he was pointed out that it was hard fought. So 79-point win, hard fought victory there for Noah. Then we go on to his last game, which was into Astra Militarum. Where they're running the strike force. So he has gone. Oh, it says strike force. Let me see. He said, yeah. So for this one, it was Lichpin, Search and Destroy, Raise Banner. So we have Gaunt's Ghost, followed by Lord Solar Leontis, 1 platoon command squad, tank commander, and then Ursula Creed. 1 unit of Cadian shock troops, 2 minimum size, 3 minimum size, 4 minimum size unit of Catachat jungle fighters. That's some good scouting. Infantry squad, followed by 3 Toroxes, 2 units of heavy weapon squad, which they had 2 mortars. All of them had mortars, excuse me. A Lehman Rust Exterminator, 2 Rogel Darns, and then a Scout Sentinel. Love to see it. So we hate to see these mortars as they really mess up with your grots at your home objective. That's why having sticky kind of helps. You have the Torax Primes, people can kind of get mobility and disembarking shooting, and then all these Catachans. So if they're embarked in those Toraxes, they can scout forward as they adopt that scout keyword. And then we have Gaunt's Ghost, who did end up playing a factor in this game. So he said game 5 was into the guard, where he staged and killed some infantry on the bottom of 1, and he made a bunch of screens with his infantry. So I'm assuming he ran forward with the Catachans and just staged up maybe the Krieg also or something behind him. Or what were the Cadians behind him. He said he also got on the line and was able to focus down one of his big bricks of red squad of Orc boys, and he used like 900 points roughly, he's just guessing, of that many points to focus down that big brick of Orc boys, but he left them with 2 characters and then 1 boy. So that means this was the unit with the Pain Boy and the War Boss, but he kept 1 boy in the unit. What does that mean? That means the Pain Boy is going to gen D3, and then he's going to use a strat to regen. So that's what he did. He said he healed back on the red squad. He said healed Max back. So I'm assuming that maximum he got all the boys back that he could, which that means he got 6 boys back, which would be sick. He ended up wawing turn 2, which he hates doing, but he charged the middle to pick up 40 guardsmen, 2 vehicles, and jamming into his deployment zone for the rest of the game. He went for a sweet gamble play, trying to charge Gaunt Ghost onto his home objective, but he Rapus Ingress Ludas for a heroic. Yeah, he failed his charge. The game went decidedly further south when he killed everything down at his home objective and just kept them locked down for the rest of the game. So when you can run up and actually eat up all those screens, like we spoke about with all those guardsmen, it means that you can end up continuing to move forward. They don't have volume small arms anymore. They're going to devastate some of those units, but you're still riding that 5-up invul and that blood surge. They can't really get that close to you. And then you're, like we said, continuously regenning. So I love that he ended up doing that. Great job by doing something that you were uncomfortable with by still doing charges when you didn't want to. When you're typically not used to that, excuse me, or didn't want to. Yeah, just didn't want to. Turn 3, which I mean, if you don't want to, I'm assuming you're not used to it since you don't do what you don't want. So as for that, let's take a look. Is there anything else I missed here? Like you said, let me pull up his list one more time, and then maybe some more notes that I might have listed. Okay, I have his notes up. He said, if your opponent sees the table, continue to advance forward by adding pressure. But don't fully commit unless you really have to. But if they do apply pressure to you, sometimes allowing them to think that they're winning and playing kind of passively allows you to extend your MSU tools and then setting them up in positions where you can kind of end up charging into them and getting them off. Kind of like in that guard game where he was just like, oops, play with my little stuff early. You come out with your screens, and then you were a little too close to me, and I just positioned to get you. And because my unit regen, I have another asset where you probably didn't expect me, and you positioned really close to it. So as for his list, I love that he didn't bring a ton of characters. One thing that he did say is that you must take advantage of the mortals that you get in this detachment you have access to right now. So the bomb squigs give you access to the bomb squig. Tank busters give you access to bomb squigs that you actually appreciate. You appreciate grenades a lot. Which is also something that I think our players need to keep in mind when you're doing your CP management. His dirty syringe from the Pain Boy is a big deal, so never forget to utilize that and get your mortal wounds off on that. That's why you also don't let that unit get, focused down and precision out on the characters. And typically people don't bring shooting for this detachment, but he does advise bringing shooting for this detachment and having the MSU units, so you're not just trying to live on your stats in the middle of the table, so you can play different turns before you're ready to full commit. Then when you're ready to full commit, people can't dig you out anymore. So shout out to Noah. Thank you very much for all the notes. War for the rise of the green tide. If you enjoyed the clip, check out the full video here. If you'd like to see more tactics, click here.
Let's get stuck in, lads!